guys. I'm Lakshmikant. Hope you all are fine. Here I'm going to start the chapter Biodiversity and Conservations, my dear, and this one the chapter Unit 10 of class 12. In this very chapter, I'm going to tell you about the first thing that is what biodiversity and then after conservation. So first of all, here you all know that the term diversity. The term diversity means what here? The term diversity means that varieties of life that is present on Earth. It means that here bio means what life, diversity means what varieties. So if I'm saying that the varieties of life present on Earth is known as biodiversity. So the first thing that is clear, that is biodiversity term is clear. Now the thing is that is important to understand here that if I'm saying that the biodiversity consists where basically this this biodiversity consists in global species media. In global species diversity, you know that the species which is found in every places, just like you see in either in the terrestrial, either in aquatic, or either in the aerial media. Clear? But what we observe day by day, we observe day by day that loss of biodiversity. You know the reason for the loss of biodiversity. The reason for loss of biodiversity is, my dear, that is habitat loss and word fragmentation, over exploitation, alien species invasions, co-extinction. These all are the various causes where the loss of biodiversity might be. Getting? So what we should have to do? We should have to be conserve the biodiversity. What the reason for conservations of biodiversity, my dear? There are you they know the methods of the conservation of biodiversity. That is first, that is narrow utilitarian. That is first. That is more than 25% of the drugs and derived from plants. Second one is broadly utilitarian. That is provide oxygen, pollination, aesthetic pleasures. Ethical utilitarian. That is moral duty to take care of our biodiversity, my dear. And something that is important, that is also, my dear, that is what methods. There are so many methods of conservation of biodiversity. There are two methods, my dear. What that is what one situ conservation, second one is ex situ conservation, my dear. So if this one is very important term, my dear, what do you mean by in situ conservation and ex situ conservation? Basically, in situ conservation, there are some methods of conserving the biodiversity and some protected area from where we conserve the biodiversity, my dear. That is national park, sanctuary, biosphere reserves, sacred forest, hotspots. These all are the places where we conserve the biodiversity, right? But whenever I'm talking about the ex situ conservation, here there are also a protective area where we conserve the biodiversity. That is zoological park, botanical gardens, gene bank, genetic resource center. These all are the areas where we also conserve the biodiversity. Getting? So after knowing these all things, there's something that is very also important, that levels of biodiversity. When we go through in the details of this very chapter, then I will tell you about the levels of biodiversity. Here the basically three levels of biodiversity. Number one is what? Genetic diversity. See here, the thing is also written here. Genetic biodiversity. If I'm saying here the genetic biodiversity, it means what? See, here the genetic biodiversity. Second one is what? A species biodiversity. And third one is what, my dear? Ecological diversity. So there are basically three level of biodiversity. So in first genetic diversity, it means what? Diversity is shown in a single species. So if I'm saying here that the varieties of life only can be seen within a single species at only the genetic level. Getting my point? I'm repeating again. Whenever I'm saying that the diversity shown by the single species at genetic level, then it is known as what? Genetic diversity. Number one. Second one, that is what? Diversity at the species level. So if I'm saying here that the level, that is what? A species level, then it is known as what? Species diversity. And third one, that is diversity at the ecosystem level, then it is known as what? Ecological diversity. Getting my point? So let me start one by one, that understand the first thing, that what biodiversity. Here just I'm going to write the term. Which one term first? That is first one, that is biodiversity. What I'm going to write here, biodiversity. Let's see here, this one, biodiversity, right? So see, in biodiversity, what we understand here, let's see, biodiversity means that the varieties of life. I'm saying here what? Varieties of life, varieties of life on the earth. Varieties of life on the earth is known as what? Biodiversity, right? Number one. Now the number second thing, that is what? Levels of biodiversity. Let's see. Second one is what? Levels of biodiversity. Second one is what? Levels. Levels of biodiversity. See, if I am talking about the levels of biodiversity, then we understand here there are basically three levels of biodiversity. Number one is what? Genetic biodiversity. Number one is what? Genetic biodiversity. Wait for a moment. Number one, genetic, write down, genetic biodiversity. Genetic biodiversity. Second one is what? Species biodiversity. Species biodiversity. Diversity, no, biodiversity. Get it? And third one is what? What? Ecology biodiversity. See here are things that is written what? Ecological biodiversity. Okay. Third one is what? For a moment. Ecological biodiversity. Okay. So if anybody can ask you how many types of biodiversity, then you say what? Basically the levels of biodiversity. Number one, genetic biodiversity, species biodiversity, and third one is what? Ecological biodiversity. Okay. So let's know one by one. Now the first one is here what? That is genetic biodiversity. Genetic bio genetic biodiversity. Getting? Let's see. In a genetic biodiversity, my dear, we know that whenever the diversity is shown by a single species at genetic level, the diversity is shown by a single species. What I'm saying to you, diver diversity diversity shown in which one? Single species, at what? At genetic level. At genetic level, then it is known as what? Genetic biodiversity, right? Now, the second thing is that is what? Species biodiversity. What I'm going to tell you. Second one is what? Second one is species. Species biodiversity. For a moment. Species biodiversity. See, in species biodiversity, what we understand here, in a species biodiversity here, we understand that diversity at the species level. What I'm saying? Diversity is at only the species level. What I'm writing here? Diversity at the what? Species level, my dear. Correct? So if the diversity at the species level, then it is known as what? Species biodiversity. And third one is what, my dear? Ecological biodiversity. Third one is what? Third one is ecological biodiversity. So if the diversity at the level of ecosystem, then it is known as what? Yes, that is known as what? Ecological biodiversity. Getting to see diversity at the level of ecosystem. Diversity at the, what I'm saying, level of what? Ecosystem. Getting? You know the ecosystem? Yes, that is biotic and abiotic together constitute in our surrounding is known as what? Ecosystem, right? See, here, I'm going to tell you what the, wait for a moment. Here, I'm going to tell you what, see, uh, levels of diversity. Okay, so see, these all are the what? Levels of what? Diversity. Getting? These all are what? Levels of diversity. Number one, genetic biodiversity, species biodiversity, ecological biodiversity. Because we all know that the lowest level of taxonomy, we all know that what I'm writing, lowest level of what I'm saying here, lowest level of taxonomy, I'm saying. Okay, you all know that the lowest level of taxonomy is what, my dear? Number one, that is species. What I'm saying, species. Okay, and the highest level of taxonomy is what I'm saying, highest level of what I'm saying, taxonomy. So highest level of taxonomy is what? That is kingdom. That is what? Kingdom. Wait for a moment. Highest level of taxonomy is what? Here, kingdom. I am clear. To see here the two level. One is the lowest level of taxonomy. If anybody can ask you, then what you say, species, and then after the highest level of taxonomy, that is what? Kingdom. So this one is the level of taxonomy, and you know that the taxonomy is what? Taxonomy is the branch of biology in which we deals the organisms on the basis of what? Characterization, classification, identification, and nomenclature, my dear. Okay, and this one thing is written in second chapter of class 11, that is biological classification, my dear. Right? Now see, here the biodiversity term is clear, level of biodiversity is clear. Now how many levels of biodiversity? Three: species level, ecological level, and genetic level. Okay, now the point is to be here that what, see, after knowing these all things, that what we should have to do to conserve the biodiversity. So conservation of biodiversity, you know that if I'm saying here that what next thing, that is what conservation of what, this one, biodiversity. This one is what, conservation of biodiversity. Okay, so let's see how we conserve the biodiversity. This one is important to understand here. Let's see. Next thing that is important to understand, what I'm going to write here, conservation of what, biodiversity. If I'm saying here that we should have to be conserve the biodiversity. Now the question is here that how we conserve the biodiversity. This one is the thing. So see here there are some methods that is given here to conserve the biodiversity. Okay, here the first one is what in situ conservation and second one is what ex situ conservation. Let's see basically the method that is what I'm saying here. Two methods, two methods, two methods for wait a moment. Two methods for what I'm saying conservation, conservation of what? Conservation of biodiversity, right? Number one, that is what in situ conservation and second one is what ex situ, ex situ conservation. Getting? One is what in situ conservation, second one is what ex situ conservation. So there are two ways that we conserve this biodiversity material. Now I'm going to tell you about in details that how we conserve this biodiversity through NCERT material. Okay, so let's check through NCERT that what the thing is written here, and after come to this point. Okay, let's see. The first, this one is the 15th chapter. Clear? See what the thing is written here. For a moment. Clear? Let's check. Here the biodiversity and conservation, what the thing is important here. Understand first, and then after we move. Okay. See here the thing that is important to understand in if an align I am saying what I'm saying if an align I am saying. Wait for a moment. I'm saying that what yeah if I'm saying that if an align from a distant galaxy we were to visit our planet Earth, the first thing that would amaze and baffle him would most probably become innermost diversity of life. You know, innermost diversity of life. Even for human, even for human, the rich variety of living organisms with which they share this planet never cease to astonish and fascinate us. Getting? So see, I'm saying here that when we align from a distant galaxy, distant, that is a far galaxy, then what see, we see that the planet, that planet that is a blue planet, Earth. The first thing that what we imagine that there are mostly innermost diversity of life, even though we also know that the living organisms with share this planet never cease to astonish and fascinate. So, main thing that is important to understand that uh, frogs, I'm saying that not in uh, accurate data is here. 20,000 species of ants, 3 lakhs species of beetles, 28,000 species of fishes, and nearly 20,000 species of orchids. So here, the ecologist and evolutionary biologist both have been trying to understand the significance of such a biodiversity by asking important questions. Getting my point? Yeah, I'm saying that. So if the 20,000 species of plants, 3 lakh species of beetles, 28,000 of species of fishes, and nearly 20,000 of species of orchids. Getting? So the one question is arises in the mind of ecologist and evolutionary my dear that uh, that why are there so many species? Why are there so many species? Getting my point? So here, such a diversity exists throughout the earth history, my dear. What I'm saying? Diversity exists throughout the earth history. Yes. How does this diversification come about, my dear? You know how this diversification? This diversification will come together due to the sexual reproduction, my dear. How and why this diversity important to the biosphere? Is the biodiversity is important? This one of the question arises in the mind of ecologist and evolutionary biologist, my dear. Would it functions any differently if the diversity was much less? This one is also the question. How do human benefits from diversity of life? So these all are the questions where arises in the mind of what ecologist and evolutionary biologist. Getting? These all are the questions. The first question is that what? Did such a greatly diversity exist throughout the Earth's history? Yes. Why are there so many species? How does this diversification come about? How and why is the diversity important to the biosphere? And would it function any differently if the diversity was much less? And last question that arises in the mind of ecologist, my dear, that is what? How do human benefits from the diversity of life? Is this thing clear? So let's see answer of these all very questions, my dear. But giving the answer of these all very question, it is not a very easy task. So first of all, we should have to be a clear concept over the term biodiversity. Yes or no? So see, in this very chapter, what we study, in this very chapter, study about the biodiversity and the biodiversity conservation, my dear. Study. Okay. So the first term, that is what here, biodiversity. I was told about biodiversity. Bio means what? Life, and diversity means what? Varieties. So what we say here, the varieties of life present on Earth is known as biodiversity, right? So in our biosphere, you all know that immense diversity, my dear. What I'm saying? Immense. What the meaning of immense diversity? Immense diversity means that the huge diversity, or you say the heterogeneity, my dear. If I'm saying here the heterogeneity, it means that hetero means what? Differ. Genetic means what? Gene. So here the species having a different gene, they're known as what? Heterogeneity. It exists only at the species level, but all the level of biological organizations ranging from macromolecules within the cells to what? Biomes, my dear. So see, so biodiversity is the term popularized by the whom? Sociobiologist. You know the name of that very sociobiologist? The name of the scientist, that is Edward Wilson. What I'm saying? Edward Wilson. Important. Just you mark this one. Edward Wilson, my dear. Okay. So this biodiversity term, let's see what I'm going to write here. I'm going to write here. Here biodiversity. Here biodiversity is the term. The what, my dear? The term popularized by the sociobiologist. What I'm saying here? By the sociobiologist. So see, this biodiversity is term popularized by the sociobiologist, and the name of this sociobiologist is what? Edward Wilson, my dear. What I'm saying here? Edward Wilson. Getting? This one is Edward Wilson. Let's see. Here, the biodiversity term. That is what? A varieties of life on Earth. And this one term is popularized by Edward Wilson. According to Edward Wilson, it describes the combined diversity. What I'm saying here? Combined diversity. If I'm saying here about this combined diversity, it means that the diversity at all the levels, my dear. at all those levels of what? Biological organization. Let's see one by one. Uh, Here, the most important of them, that is what? Genetic diversity. What I'm saying to you, genetic diversity. So if I'm saying here the genetic diversity, my dear, genetic diversity, the first genetic diversity, my dear, then what we know? In a genetic diversity, we understand here a single species. What I'm saying, a single species might show high diversity at the genetic level. So if only the single species show the highly diversity, that is varieties, in a genetic level over its distribution range, my dear, then it is known as what? Genetic diversity. And you all know that this genetic diversity, or the genetic variation shown by the medicinal plant, my dear, and that very plant is known as what? Raulophia. See here, what the Raulophia and vomitoria, growing in a different Himalayan range, might be in the terms of what? Potency and concentration of the active chemicals, my dear, that is the razor pine, and that the plants produces. Greeting, India has more than 50,000 genetically different strains of rice and 1,000 varieties of mangoes, my dear. Getting this one thing? So this one is a what? Diversity in a single species, my dear. So if I'm saying here that if the diversity in a single species, then it is known as what? Genetic diversity, my dear. Getting my point? Getting my point? Now, the second one, that is what? Species diversity. So if I'm saying here about the term species diversity, it means that here the diversity where at the level of species level, because the group of species to form genus. So the species level, basically here the diversity where at the species level. For example, when you visit the Western Ghat, my dear, when you visit the Western Ghat, then you have a greater amphibian species, my dear, greater amphibian species, that is a diversity than the Eastern Ghat. So when you visit the Western Ghat, they're amphibians. Amphibians means what? The organisms which live on both land as well as in water. This show the what? Great diversity, my dear. So the diversity is there is what? On the basis of the species there, na? So that's why I'm saying to you. Now, next thing, that is what? Ecological diversity. See, in ecological diversity, here we know that ecology, yes, the study of ecosystem is known as ecology. So in the same way, we understand here this to add diversity at the what? Ecosystem level. In India, just I'm giving you instance, the example in India, for instance, you take, for instance, that is example, with its desert, rainforest, mangroves, coral reefs, wetlands, estuaries, alpine meadows, has a greater ecosystem diversity, my dear. You know, than a Scandinavian country like Norway. So here the basically the diversity will take place basically on the ecology, because they are the biotic and abiotic together constitute in their surroundings. So basically ecological diversity we are seeing in India, my dear, because the various climatic condition is here, various types of seasons is here, various types of texture of soil is here, isn't it or not? So these all are the responsible responsible cases, so that the ecological diversity is seen only in India, my dear. Getting my point? I'm not saying that here only in India, but mostly we see ecological diversity in India, my dear. It has taken million of years of evolution, and you know that this whatever the diversity we see right now nowadays, it is not occurs in a single day. It takes million of years, because you know that the evolution will change this diversity, and you know that the evolution can only be seen whenever the variation is be there, and variation can only be seen whenever the sexual reproduction is be there. Am I right? I was told that variation is the key factor of evolution. But how the variation come? The variation comes with the help of sexual reproduction. Is it possible to variation come in asexual reproduction? No, my dear. So always the variation occur due to sexual reproduction. And this sexual reproduction causes what? A variation, and variation gives a result of what? Evolution, my dear. Getting my point? So see, so take million of years of evolution, and this accumulation goes accumulated this rich diversity in what? This rich diversity in what, my dear? In nature. But would you lose all the wealth in the less than 2 centuries if the present rates of species loses continue? We all know that as varieties of life, a lots of biodiversity, a lots of diversity is there. But here the thing that is important to understand, my dear, that a loss of biodiversity with a loss of what? Continuity of presenting of life on earth, my dear. Here the biodiversity and its conservation now vital environmental issue, my dear. Vital, that is what important environmental issue. Because day by day what we all are doing, day by day we are just lost their what? Biodiversity, or harms the biodiversity, my dear, of international concern as more people around the world begin to realize the critical importance of what? Biodiversity. Getting my point? Critical importance for our survival and well-being on this planet, my dear. Let's see uh, how this one is important, my dear. How we should have to be conserve the biodiversity. How many species are there on the earth and how many in India? Let's see. This one is the question. Yes or no? According to what IUCN, my dear, that is International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. According to this one, let me see. You all know that basically there are 1.7 to 1.8 million species on Earth. That only we study, not only the totally 1.7 to 1.8 million that we studied, yes, but approx 20 million species, 20, yes, 10 to 8 to 10 million species, my dear. 8 to 10, not 20, sorry. 8 to 10 million species. So 8 to 10 million species on Earth. In spite that very species we study up to how much? Only 1.7 to 1.8 million species, my dear. Getting? But some in data is also be there according to IUCN, that is 1.5 million species. Let's see one by one. Here, we all know that since there's published a record all the species discovered and named, we know many, we know how many species in all have been recorded so far, but it's not easy to answer because not a proper data is being given here for how many species here. So how many species are there on the earth? According to the word International Union for Conservation of Nature and what? Natural Resources. According to IUCN, that is formed where? In formed in when? 2004. The total number of plant and animal species described so far is slightly more than 1.5 million, but we have no clear idea how many species are yet to be discovered and described, my dear. Getting my point? Getting my point? What I'm saying here? I'm saying here that according to IUCN, only what? More than 1.5. So I was told that 1.7 to 1.8 million species. Yes, this one is the data that is we studied. Whatever the how many species, that is not easy to give answer that here, that this one is the species. Okay, approx I'm saying. I'm not saying exact data. First estimates are vary widely and what many of them only educated guesses. For example, you know that many talk taxonomic group. I was told about this term, na, taxonomy. See here, I was told this about taxonomy. Wait. I will say here the term taxonomy, my dear. Taxonomy, that is what? See here, taxonomy. Taxonomy was, I was told about this taxonomy. See here, the taxonomy. The lowest level of taxonomy is what? Here is species. See, species, and the highest level is what? Kingdom. You know the hierarchy of taxonomy, my dear? Anyone know the hierarchy of taxonomy? Anyone know the hierarchy of taxonomy? Let's check the hierarchy of taxonomy. What I'm going to write here, hierarchy of what I'm saying. What I'm saying here, dear, hierarchy of taxonomy. Okay, so hierarchy of taxonomy, that is what? A species, group of species to form what? Group of species to form what? Genus, and group of genus to form what? Family, and group of this family to form what, my dear? Group of genus, family. Then after you say the family, then after you say what? Order, then after you say what? Class, order, class, then after you say what? Phylum, then after you say what? Phylum, group of phylum to form what? Lastly, that is what? Kingdom, right? What I'm saying to you? Kingdom. So see, the species, group of the species to form genus, then after family, then after order, then after class, then phylum, then kingdom, and here also one is also, that is super kingdom. What I'm saying to you? Super kingdom. Getting? Getting this one thing? Yes or no? Tell me first. Okay, let's check. Getting? So see, for many taxonomic groups, so that's why I'm saying here what taxonomic groups, that is a species, inventories are more complete in the where temperate than a tropical countries. What I'm saying? Tropical countries. Is that clear? So here, considering that overwhelmingly that a large population of the species waiting to be discovered are in the tropic, here biologists, the biologists make a statistical comparison to the temperate tropical species richness of an exhaustively studied group of insects. Let's see here if I'm saying here that some extreme estimates range from 20 to 50 million, but more conservative scientifically round estimate sound estimate, by a scientist Robert May, and this Robert May places this global species diversity how much, my dear, at about 7. So this one is a sound estimate. Yes, sir. This one is the word sound estimate, my dear. Let's see. After this one thing, let's see that how this last look at some interesting aspects about the Earth's biodiversity that is totally based on the currently available inventories. You know that more than 70% of the all species recorded are animals. Getting my point? How many? 70% are animals, while plants including algae, fungi, bryophytes, gymnosperm, angiosperm, these all comprise no more than 22% of the total. Getting? So 70% of the species recorded what? Animals, and 22% were available, my dear, only the plants. Getting this thing? Among animals, insects, most species reach in taxonomic groups, making up more than 70% of the total population, my dear. That means that out of every 10 animals on this planet, 7 are insects. Out of every 10 animals, 7 are what? Insects. Again, how do we explain this innermost diversification of insects, my dear? How do we explain the innermost diversification of insects? Here, the number of fungi species in the world, my dear, is more than the combined total of species, my dear, of what? He says amphibians, reptiles, and mammals. Let's see here by showing this one a graph. Let's see. This one is given in your NCERT. Check out your NCERT book and check this one thing. Check this one thing. Yes, sir. See what I'm showing you. I'm showing you here what? Here the invertebrates. Invertebrate means what? The organisms which do not having any backbones. Here the word vertebrates, the organisms which has what? Backbone, might. Okay. So see, if I'm saying here this one by the graph, invertebrates, here mostly what we say either the either the housefly or the butterfly, or you say the larva. These all are the insects, mostly, and mollusks and crustaceans and other animals groups are in very less percentage, my dear. But in vertebrates, what you see here in the fishes, half of the area is covered from fishes. Some of them are mammals, but birds are more reptiles than after the amphibians. Here in the plants, when I'm saying plants, mostly covered by fungi in water, algae also, lichens, very list, and mostly covered what angiospermic plant. Angiospermic plant, that is a flowering plant. Getting? So here they're representing a global biodiversity. What I'm saying, global. So if I'm saying here the global biodiversity, it means I am telling you about the diversity of whole. That is either on the land, terrestrial biodiversity, either in water, that is aquatic biodiversity, either in the aerial, my dear, that is aerial biodiversity. Getting? So see, here the proportionate number of what species of major taxa of plants, my dear. Getting? That is invertebrates, vertebrates, these all are there. Now, the question is here, it should be noted that, what should be noted that, my dear? Here the estimates do not give any figures for the prokaryotes. Is there any estimate that yes, this one is the data that is fully? No, this one is not. This one is what varied, my. This one is varied. Okay, because place to place when we visit, then this data is not so accurate. So the biologist not sure that how many prokaryote species there might be. You know the meaning of prokaryotes? Prokaryotes means pro means what, primitive, karyon means what, nucleus. So those organisms which has what, primitive nucleus. It means that the organisms which has not membrane bounded organelles, just like bacteria, fungi, yes or no, whatever the viruses also, they all are what, prokaryotic. So biologists are not sure that what, how many prokaryote species there might be. Now here the problem is that you know that the conventional taxonomic methods are not suitable, my dear. Getting my point? The conventional taxonomic methods are not suitable for what? Identifying the microbial species. Getting? So problem is that the conventional taxonomic method. Many species are simple, not culturable under the laboratory condition at that time also. So if we accept the biochemical or molecular criteria, then for this group, the diversity alone might run into what, millions. What am I saying? Millions. Let's here, although you know that in India, this one is important line, 2.4% of the world's land area, it's here the global species diversity is an impressive of how much, 8.1%. That is what make our country one of the 12 mega diversity countries of the world. Yes, if anybody can ask you that India is how much mega diversity countries of the world, 12 mega. And the reason for that is what? It's here the global species diversity. How much percent? 8.1%, my dear. Nearly 45,000 species of plants and twice of what, many animals, my dear. Twice. I'm saying what? Twice as many animals have been recorded from where? Has been recorded from where? India. So see, mostly, mostly the global species diversity that is found where in found where in India, my dear. Now, the important question here: how many living species are actually there waiting to be discovered? That's the name. We accept May's global estimate. May's global estimate. Only 22% of the total species have been recorded. Yes, applying this proportion to India, diversities figure estimate there probably 1 lakh plant species and more than 3 lakh animal species, my dear. Getting? So this one is the thing. So here the word consider the immense manpower of taxonomist. Taxonomist means what? The scientist to study about the taxonomy. And you know the taxonomy? Yes, the taxonomy. Here I am repeating is the branch of biology in which we deals the organisms on the basis of classification, characterization. Yes or no? Nomenclature and identification also. Yes or no? Let's see. Here we study about what? The patterns of biodiversity, my dear. Because we know that there are different ranges, different poles. There is what? Totally diverse biodiversity, right? Diverse biodiversity. So when you move in a latitudinal gradients, their diversity is totally different from from where tell me first, from a species area relationships, or you say the places where the diversity is fully not grow in a specific region, tropical environments, there the diversity is totally different. Yes or no? This one is the thing. This one is the thing. So they are the patterns of biodiversity. Here in the patterns of biodiversity, my dear, here, see, here the patterns of diversity. Here is what? Latitudinal gradients and their what? Species area relationship. Getting? So species diversity decreases from the equator towards the pole. See what I'm saying here. If I'm moving the towards the where pole, my dear, towards pole, my dear, then the species diversity will what? Goes decreases. You know why? Because the temperature goes decreases, my dear. So once the temperature goes decreases, then the diversity also goes decreases. Na? Yes or no? Tropical latitudes area, that is 23.5 degree north to 23.5 degrees south, have more species than our temperate or polar area, because that very area is not suited for the what species. Getting? So mainly area just above the equator, just above and just below the equator, that is the most suitable area for the growth of diversity, my dear. Getting? So this one is known as what? Latitudinal gradients. What is saying? Latitudinal gradients, my dear. Getting? Getting this one thing or not? See, see here in NCERT also given what? Latitudinal gradient means that the diversity of plants and animals is not uniform. Yes, we know that is not uniform because the climatic condition is not same. Yes or no? Throughout the world, but so a rather uneven distribution. What I'm saying to you, a rather uneven distribution, I'm saying. You know that for many groups of animals or plants, their interesting pattern in diversity, the most well known being the latitudinal gradient in diversity. Latitudinal gradient, it means that when you move from equator towards pole, with a very few exceptions, here the tropical latitudinal range, that is 23.5 degree north to 23.5 degrees south, harbor more species than temperate or polar areas. So what the species, my dear, I'm saying? Here I'm saying that what? Harbor more species than temperate or polar areas. So when you move in Colombia, located near the equator, nearly how many species? 1,400 species of birds. While when you move in New York at 41 degree north has 105 species, and Greenland, that is 21 degree north, only 56 species. What we observe? We observe here that India, with much of its land area in the tropical latitude, has more than 1,200 species of birds. A forest in tropical regions like equator has 15 times of many species of vascular plants. Vascular plant, that plant which has what? Xylem and phloem. Tall plant, isn't it not? Not. That is what a forest of equal area in a temperate region like the Midwest of the USA. Where I'm saying Midwest of USA, my dear. So this one is the important thing to understand. Getting, getting, my dear. So here the largely tropical Amazon forest. You know the Amazon rainforest, where it is located? It is located in the South America, my dear. Where it is located? Largely tropical Amazon rainforest, where it is located in South America. South America has the greatest biodiversity on earth. The reason is there is what? The reason is there is what? Because they have a suitable climatic condition for the growth of many species. Here, more than 40,000 species of plants there, 3,000 tortoises there, 1,300 birds there, 427 of mammals, 427 of amphibians, 378 of reptiles, and more than 1,25,000 invertebrates, my dear. Invertebrates, that the organisms which do not having any backbones. So there, scientists estimate that this one change is basically seen in the rainforest. At least 2 million insects of a species also waiting to be discovered. So, what is so special about tropics that might account for their greater biological diversity? That's one question that is arises in mind of ecologists and many botanists also, my dear. So, according to ecologists and evolutionary biologists, my dear, have been proposed a various hypotheses. What the various hypotheses? Some are thinking about the important ones, that is speciation. See, this one is the important line. Speciation is generally a function of time, unlike temperate regions subjected to frequent glaciations in the past. Getting and the second thing, my dear, that is important. That is what tropical environment, my dear. What I'm saying, tropical environment. Tropical environment like the temperate ones, less seasonals, relative more constant and predictable. Yes or no? So these all are the things. Such a constant variations, my dears, promote niche, that is a specializations, and leads to the greater species diversity. And third one, the reason is that there is more solar energy available in the tropic areas, which contributes to the higher productivity. So more the solar energy is there, this turn to might contribute indirectly to the greater diversity, my dear, because this solar energy provide for the what provides nutrients for the plant, so that very nutrients is responsible to what grow more and more diversity, my dear. Getting? So this one is the thing, and when we go in details of this very video, then I will tell you about the next thing that is important. Let's see here the thing that is clear one, that is what a latitudinal gradient. The latitudinal gradient is what important, my dear. Getting my point? Now there are some species area relationship in when I am going to tell you about in detail video of this very chapter. Then I will tell you about this species area relationship. What the species area relationship, my dear, and then I will tell you about this one graph. Okay, so because this one the graph is something that is what very conceptual. So in next video I will tell you about this one graph in a details, my dear. Okay, so thank you for